Tonight on the Revisionist History Channel. At 8, it's Military Blunders, How Liberals Lost the Vietnam War. At 9, 9/11 Secrets Revealed, How Saddam Hussein Brought Down the Towers. At 10, it's Ice Truckers, the men, the trucks, and the ice that saved New Orleans. And then at 11, on Scientific Frontiers, it's Dinosaur Riders, the original mascot. Only on the Revisionist History Channel, where history never repeats itself. Except on weekends.
It's Labor Day weekend. The weekend off. By the way, a word of warning about the weekend. If Senator Larry Craig invites you to a tailgate party, say no. That's not what you... I'm sure you heard that was the big story this week. Senator Larry Craig of Idaho was busted in a men's room at the Minneapolis airport. Apparently this men's room is famous for gay activity. If you go online at gay websites, which I have done for research, you find this. Wow, if I knew this was the action was, I would not have wasted that whole layover cruising the Cinnabon. This is where the action is in Minneapolis. Yeah, a cop busted him. He denies it, but the cop says that he was giving off gay signals in the men's room. Like when he threw a tablecloth over the baby changing station and lit candles and opened a bottle of Merlot. Those are gay signals. No, I'm learning a lot about the gay lifestyle from this story, because apparently when you go into one of these men's rooms, tapping your foot, that's the signal for tapping your foot. No wonder the gays love musicals. Now, of course, the Republicans have completely turned on Larry Craig, as Jesus would. And they're all after him. John McCain has called for him to step down. Mitt Romney has called for him to step down. Mark Foley has just called him. So Senator Craig has now called a press conference for tomorrow. We don't know what he's going to say, but probably he's going to resign. But he said that will be a private decision that he will make after consulting with his wife, his children, and an anonymous dude he met at the Howard Johnson's on I-84. But really, you cannot blame people for being repulsed by this kind of activity. Politicians are not supposed to approach strangers and ask them for sex. They're supposed to approach strangers and ask them for money. That's... No, please. Now that's what, no, you've heard about this. Hillary Clinton, that campaign is in trouble because they had to give back this money they got from this guy who's now under arrest for some sort of Ponzi scheme he was running. Okay. Now, in Hillary's defense, Larry Craig blows guys at the airport. Hello? All right, enough about Larry Craig. In heterosexual news, the Government Accountability Office, this is the investigative arm of Congress, gets this, says that things are not improving in Iraq despite what the administration says. They say Iraq has failed to meet 15 of the 18 benchmarks that they said they had to meet about progress in Iraq. To give you an idea of how pathetic it's going over there, Lindsay Lohan is doing better in rehab. course, I'm kidding about that. No, the rumor about her now is that she was caught taking drugs and having sex in a toilet with a male patient. I didn't even know she was Republican. Now, you heard this story about the WWF? I guess that's the World Wrestling Federation. I'm a big fan. But apparently they have suspended 10 of their wrestlers for steroid use. And I say thank God, because, you know, when I'm watching a 300-pound commando in a camouflage thong pretend to break an Indian chief's neck with his thighs, I say to myself, I hope this is on the level. This would break my heart if it wasn't. Speaking of on the level, Alberto Gonzalez resigned this week. I think we should mention that. Our Attorney Generalissimo and President Bush said he is looking for a replacement. He's trying to find someone equally versed in the law. In fact, he's in front of Home Depot now picking out some guys. And finally, you heard about this Leona Helmsley, who died last week. She left $12 million to her dog. Now, we do not know what the dog is planning to do with that money, but Michael Vick is fucked. That's all right. We got a great show. We got Mike Gravel, Barbara Bodine, and John Mellencamp are here. And a little later, we're speaking with the PETA co-founder, Ingrid Newkirk. But first, to mark the second anniversary of Hurricane Katrina, to welcome our favorite resident of New Orleans, who also runs MyDamnChannel.com, our old friend Harry Shearer is here. Harry!
Hey, Bill. How are you?
Harry, how you doing?
I'm doing great. I have some late-breaking news.
Yeah.
I've heard that Senator Larry Craig is in fact going to announce his resignation tomorrow, and he's resigning in order to spend more time with his men's room.
Harry, I don't believe we should make jokes about Senator Craig.
You're right. I don't know what I was thinking. Well, I do know what I was thinking, but I shouldn't have been thinking it.
Now, now, what do you think about this idea that we constantly are now, I wouldn't say celebrating, but commemorating the anniversary of Katrina? It really wasn't a positive event, was it?
It certainly wasn't. Those of us who live in New Orleans, of course, don't need national media attention to have the flooding of New Orleans in the front of our minds. The people who live here and are working every day to try to come back and recover and rebuild their homes and businesses have it in the front of their minds every day. But
and you lived there a long time, right? I mean, you've lived there before.
For 10 years. For 10 years, yeah.
And so, and yet you're in show business. You're the basis for Spinal Tap. You're the voice of the Simpsons. How is it that you can maintain a show business career and still live in New Orleans?
Because there are flights every day to Los Angeles.
All right. Thank you for answering that question. Now, why did you choose to stay? Like our friend Harry Anderson. He left New Orleans. He said this place is stuck on stupid.
There's a definable, discernible lack of leadership here, but I love the way of life here. I love the people here. I love you get beyond the food and the music, and there's just a way of living here that's Caribbean and European and not matched in any other place in the North American continent, and I'm a sucker for it. And I loved it before. The men's rooms are... You can eat off of the floors now.
Eat who?
I had no damage to my home, and I felt that when you love a city, you don't walk away from it at its time when it's battered and bruised. You help to bring it back to good shape. So.
One thing that I've learned from reading your blog, and you blog a lot for Ariana Huffington, as I do sometimes, not as much as she would like. I often get that call. Bill, do a blog. Bill, do a blog for me.
Darling, write for free for me, will you?
But I learned that really, and this is something I must say I did not know, that the hurricane was not as bad as we thought. It was not a giant hurricane. It was really a man-made disaster, and you laid the blame with the Army Corps of Engineers. But when you blame the Army Corps of Engineers, Harry, aren't you actually not supporting the troops?
Well, let's be honest, Bill. I do hate freedom. Let's get that out. But that aside, it's not me who blames the Army Corps of Engineers. It's 3 independent engineering reports. One by the American Society of Civil Engineers, one by the National Science Foundation, one by the LSU Hurricane Center, and then one by the Army Corps of Engineers themselves. All came to the same conclusion. There were serious design and construction flaws in the levees and flood wall systems that were supposed to protect New Orleans. Hurricane Katrina was a big hurricane disaster for the Mississippi Gulf Coast. No doubt about it. You can go to Mississippi, everything was flat. Here, things were crazy vertical. Water washed over this place. Houses were not flattened, but they were moved into other houses or moved by the power of the water into other cars, or cars were placed on top of houses. But it's a totally different landscape. And the city was flooded for weeks. So it's had a totally different kind of damage than the Mississippi Gulf Coast, which had hurricane damage. And this was caused by the flaws in the construction and design of these structures, which have been at work under construction for the last 40 years under both parties.
Right. And also, let's not forget to mention the Army Corps of Engineers is not the Army. They're not the troops. Well, they're civilians.
Yeah.
They hide behind that word Army. You say Army, and people go, oh, you're not supporting the troops. But they're not the troops, are they?
Well, and also, you know, they're not the old Army Corps of Engineers, which used to do stuff themselves. They're now, in the strange culture we live in the business of contracting out to private contractors. So, for example, when the debris had to be picked up off the streets of New Orleans, the Army Corps of Engineers contracted out. The prime contractor got $175 a ton. By the time the guy with the truck came by to actually move the stuff out of the city, he was getting $5 a ton.
Right. And that's, I think, the story that really needs to be told about this disaster. Is like everything else with the Bush administration, it was a way to funnel money to rich cats and contributors and those kind of people. All that money that we hear that went down to Orleans, it didn't really go to the people, did it?
The vast majority of homeowners who were supposed to be compensated for the damage by these floods that were caused by the failure of the levee system are still waiting for their checks. I was talking to a friend of mine just yesterday who's waiting for a $7,000 check for the last 8 months. People are made to go through Kafkaesque procedures of paperwork, and Bush had stood in Jackson Square and said, we're going to cut red tape. Well, they cut red tape and they generated whole new tons of it.
Yeah. And yet somehow, like a place like Holland, Holland with all the pot smokers, those crazy, stoners, but they have levees that actually work.
Well, it's interesting. When they had a huge flood in 1953, and they came over here to find out what the state of the art was. And
wow,
then they
stoned.
built and then they built upon it. So what you have in the Netherlands now is a flood control system that is built for a standard to prevent a 1 in 10,000 year event. That's a very high standard. The Army Corps says maybe by 2011 we'll have a system here that's designed to prevent or to protect us from a 1 in 100 year event. There's a bunch of zeros missing.
Okay. All right, Harry, always great to see you. Come join us on the panel soon. Harry Shearer from New Orleans, everybody. Okay, let's meet our panel tonight. Okay, here they are. He is now seeking the Democratic nomination for president, the former U.S. Senator from Alaska, Mike Gravel. Mike, how you doing tonight?
Thank you.
She lectures at Princeton's Woodrow Wilson School of Public Policy as a former diplomat featured in the new documentary No End in Sight. Barbara Bodine, thank you for joining us.
My pleasure.
And you all know this man, a rock icon and co-founder of Farm Aid. He'll be performing on September 9th at Randall's Island in New York City for that cause. His Midwestern tour kicks off in October. John Mellencamp is over here. Okay, so I do not want to talk about Larry Craig for the whole show, but about 90% of it would be fine by me because it's funny and because there's a pattern here. I mean, he is certainly not the first gay Republican that we have, the first values gay Republican that we found in the last couple of years. There was Jeff Gannon, remember, in the White House press corps. There was the Reverend Ted Haggard. There was Mark Foley. I don't understand why, if you're a gay man, you become a Republican. That's the... Why not do what other gay men do and become a priest? Seriously, why do you think these people would join a club that doesn't want them, in Groucho's phrase?
Because they're hypocrites. They're hypocrites. They talk about these values.
They like being hypocrites?
Yeah, I think so.
Really?
I think there's elements of that. It's very sad. There's nothing wrong with the sex. It's the problem of their hypocrisy. You know, they need to come out of the closet, then to be normal.
John?
Well, I don't know about his preference sexually and all that kind of stuff, but I will say that it certainly demonstrates bad choosing, bad, thinking. It's just a bad idea. Do you want somebody, leading your state who has made the decision, I'm going in the bathroom to chase sex? Now, Bill, you and I might do that, but at one time. Well, what do you mean? You've never followed a woman into the restroom?
This is why I wish I was born a musician and not a comedian. I think the musicians get to follow women in the restroom a lot more.
But you made a choice. Gay people, as we know from some reports, don't make choices, They're born that way.
But see, that's
It has nothing to do with the going into a men's room and possibly soliciting.
No, not at all.
That's a completely different issue.
Yeah, but the problem really is our society. These people are, gay people are always oppressed. This guy is from what state?
Idaho.
Well, there you go.
Right, he's got to go all the way to Minnesota to get some.
Well, but it's that people don't accept that lifestyle, and it shows because there's no gay marriage, and people running for president are still against gay marriage. I don't get it.
It's a great tragedy. It truly is a tragedy because it's our culture that drives them into the closet, and then and being in the closet brings about these perversions.
Yes.
Nothing wrong with the sex.
Right.
It's the way they approach it and the hypocrisy of them pointing, like Craig, he was the one that was talking about Bill Clinton was a bad boy.
It's guys like Larry Craig, the senator, who forced guys like Larry Craig, the man, into the airport toilet. And we have that clip that you were talking about. This is from Chris Matthews' show, I think, in 1999. Now, Chris Matthews, they were talking about the impeachment of Clinton. Look at what Larry Craig says, and then look at the look on Chris Matthews' face when he gets done talking.
The Senate certainly can bring about a censure resolution, and it's a slap on the wrist. It's a bad boy, Bill Clinton. You're a naughty boy. The American people already know that Bill Clinton is a bad boy, a naughty boy. I'm going to speak out for the citizens of my state who, in the majority, think that Bill Clinton is probably even a nasty, bad, naughty boy.
You got that one on, Chris?
He's got everything but the Charles Nelson Riley ascot over there. You naughty bad boy. It's so sad. And the Ted Haggards of the world always talk about homosexuality like it's this temptation that every straight man faces every day of his life. But the Republicans do. The Republicans do have a savior. It is Fred Thompson. We got word this week is going to make it official next week. Am I missing something about Fred Thompson? Is there a there that I'm not seeing?
Fred Thompson? My God, that's the guy from Gucci Gulch. You know, K Street lobbyist, and he's now running for president. That's what you got.
And Law and Order.
I'm told that he drives a red pickup truck. He takes his limousine to get to the pickup truck and then drives the truck for 2 blocks to the crowd. And then when he's done, goes back to 2 blocks, gets in his limousine, goes back. This is the phoniest. This is politics as usual. Is there any end to this?
Well, it does bother me. The red pickup truck does bother me. I have to say that.
The red part?
Well, yeah, he's a commie. No, just because that's his image. He seems to have built this whole campaign on the idea that he drives a red pickup truck. Like, case closed. You know, it's America.
Yeah, but you know that's worked so many times. You know, I mean,
just in your songs.
well, yeah. I mean, you know, from Willie Stark and all the King's Men. I mean, you know, that's the way it works. I mean, our president has got, a friend of mine said it, a movie set down in Texas that he bought a couple months, before he ran for president. There's no work going on down there. It's just a prop, a place so that he can look like he can relate to the people in the Midwest and the common man.
But it does seem like Americans fall for that kind of stuff.
Well, you know why we fall for it? Because we're getting swindled. That's what it is. It's a swindle. When you change the truth, right, to gain, to have your position known or to make money. If you and I had perpetrated a swindle such as has been done in the United States, we'd be in jail.
What swindle are you talking about?
Iraq, you name it.
Right.
The war on drugs, the war on poverty, every swindle that they throw in front of us, and we go, yeah, man, that's right. But the reality is, it's all about somebody else making money.
But I'm listening to your record. I got it when it came out. It's a good record. All your records. I'm a fan. But you're very patriotic. I mean, sometimes I listen to your songs, and I think, wow, that guy is talking about an America I don't know about.
Well, you don't. You don't know about it because you're not out there. I'm one of the only guys that's very liberal.
But what am I missing in the middle of the country?
You're missing people who are honest people who want to be treated honestly.
But they're the ones who are backing Fred Thompson because he has a red pickup truck.
Because they believe. Because they believe.
They believe in red pickup trucks?
No, they believe what people tell them. They tell the truth. They think people are telling them the truth.
But see, when I say...
Hey, listen, what's wrong with being naive? I mean,
What's wrong with it? It's what's got us into this
No.
big friggin' mess. What do you mean, what's wrong with being naive?
I think the American people are very naive.
They are.
Well,
why are you asking me what's wrong with it?
Well,
you must know what's wrong with it. What's wrong with it is because it means that they buy into shit that isn't real. This is why they elected George Bush, because they wanted to have a pot roast with him. This is why they believe Fred Thompson is the real deal, because he drives a pickup truck, he's got dirt under his fingernails.
But they don't have any options. They don't have any options. They're just voting for personalities.
That's right.
They're giving their power away. If they had options, the option would
be
for the people to
You're in the race.
Yeah.
You're in the race.
Right.
They have the option of voting for you.
They're good. She's got a place in my administration higher than she thinks.
But wait a second. Every time we have an election year come around, there's always people in the race. Going back to, I remember when I was 24 years old, John Anderson ran in 1980. He was the real deal. Paul Tsongas in 1988. He told the truth. You're telling the truth. They don't vote for those people. So that's what's wrong with Americans being
No.
They can't recognize the truth when they see it.
It's more important than that. We're stuck.
What could be more important than that?
Empowering the people, the sovereigns. That's what it takes to hear. Our government is broken. Representative government is broken. There's only 2 venues for change. One is where it's broken, where you go to the people and empower them to do exactly what central government does, make laws. And when the people are able to do that, you're going to see all of this dissipate.
Bill,
believe me.
If everybody was, didn't believe anything anybody said, what kind of world would we live in? I wouldn't want to live in that world where everything Bill's saying is a fucking lie. I'm not going to listen to him.
Well, everything I say isn't, but then again, I'm not running for anything.
Okay, but my point is that if we're to assume that everything that's coming out of everybody's mouth is a lie, then I don't, this is not the world I want to live in.
Not everybody's mouth.
Well,
Yeah.
Just the ones they vote for.
well, you can't. I can't say why they. I see it. I see it. I see it all the time. I can't understand. My wife and I would drive through small communities in Indiana and go, we don't understand these Bush Cheney signs in front of these people's houses. But they were swindled.
But isn't there something to telling the people, be more cynical, to quote one of my old lines?
Well, I don't know. I don't want to go through life being cynical.
Well, you know what?
Barbara
It's better,
Williams.
it's better than going through life swindled.
I don't like either one of them.
You know what? Alberto Gonzalez stepped down this week.
Yes.
Another example to me of people falling for an image and a story. When he resigned, he was talking about how my worst days were better than my father's best days, because his father was a migrant worker. You know what? I don't know about that. Did your father, Mr. Gonzalez, legalize torture? Did your father perjure himself before Congress? Then I think your father had some better days than you did. But again, we fall for the image, we fall for the story.
But it was a remarkably condescending and downright insulting thing to say about his father.
Yeah.
That his father was not, if the heartland is more honest, and I'm not really sure I buy that.
I'm not saying they're more honest. I think they're more open. They want to be. They believe what they hear.
That's okay, but they need to hear more. They need
Not
to
a virtue.
Well, it's a virtue as long as you make sure that you're hearing a lot of different views and not just the one view that you're getting. But to sort of say that, what my father did had no value is what he was basically saying. That my father's best day had no value. And in a sense, my father had no value. And I found that a remarkably insulting and as I said, condescending thing to say about not just his father, but these good, hardworking people, these farmers, these migrants. And rather than saying that if he had stood up and said, I have lived my life trying to live up to the values that my hardworking father instilled in me, that would have been a good statement. But to kind of dismiss everything that his father had done was, in a sense, I think, one of the worst things that he could have said.
And I was reading in the paper this week that the whitest states, the ones very often that are the most against illegal immigration, that are saying the government does not do enough to bring in, to stop illegals from coming to this country, are the states that can't find workers. Montana, where 7 out of 10 people say the government not doing enough, has a dire shortage of workers. They can't find people in the fast food restaurants. They can't find loggers. It seems to me that if they would lose this notion that America has to be a white Christian country, they could actually help themselves in a way that they're not helping themselves.
Well, of course, they take the position that that ever since they've got here, that they're opposed to immigrants. That's the line that was
All
written
right,
down.
I want
that
to
was on
show
a
this
piece of
tape.
paper?
Now, I know a lot of people have probably seen this tape of Miss Teen South Carolina.
I have.
You've all seen this on television or the...
I haven't.
Oh, you haven't seen this? Well, if you think that education is a problem in this country, this will really make your head explode, because this girl she's I think 17 years old. We got to give her a little slack for that. But still, when I talk to young people, I very often say to myself, how did you get out of high school? How did they let you out of school without knowing that? And that's the adults' fault. But anyway, she was asked the question, why do you think that so many Americans can't find America on a map? And this is her answer.
I don't think.
I personally believe that U.S. Americans are unable to do so because some people out there in our nation don't have maps, and I believe that our education, like such as in South Africa and the Iraq, everywhere like such as, and I believe that they should, our education over here in the U.S. should help the U.S. Or should help South Africa. It should help the Iraq and the Asian countries, so we will be able to build up our future.
I like this one.
She sounds like a politician trying to wing it.
Exactly. Now, I did not know that so many U.S. Americans were facing a map shortage. But anyway, it did make me think of that. And in 2004, when Bush was running for re-election, he was asked the question, what do you think tribal sovereignty means in the 21st century, and how do we resolve conflicts between tribes and the federal government? Look at his answer.
Oh, dear.
Tribal sovereignty means that it's sovereign. You've been given sovereignty, and you're viewed as a sovereign entity. And therefore, the relationship between the federal government and tribes is one between sovereign entities.
I rest my case. I think she should run for the Republican nomination. She's everything that they like. She's a moron. She garbles sentences, and she has the emotional maturity of a 17-year-old. So, but the difference, of course, is that
this makes my candidacy look good.
Or he should run for beauty queen.
But she lost. He won. Okay? Professor Numbnuts won his re-election campaign. All right, let's go to our satellite. She is the president and co-founder of the People for the Ethical Treatment of Animals. My friend Ingrid Newkirk is with us. Ingrid, how you doing?
Fine, Bill. Thank you.
Okay, well, I am not going to pretend to be impartial about this because you are a friend of mine and a hero to me for everything you do for the animals. But, and I know PETA is much in the news lately because of the Michael Vick dogfighting situation. But before we get to that, I was interested this week, you had an ad that you ran talking about meat. And I think if people are going to take away one thing that they've learned from this show tonight, I hope it would be the idea that meat and the eating of meat is actually worse for the global warming problem than all the oil and all the gas that we burn in our cars and airplanes. And I wish you would educate us on exactly why that is.
It is a report from the United Nations that follows up on a report from the University of Chicago, actually, that the inconvenient truth, the real big one, is that you can point a finger at Hummers and jet setting off to luxury vacations, but really the finger needs to be pointed at our plates, because when we're looking at greenhouse gases, we have CO2, we have nitrogen, we have methane. We need to look at factory farming. That's where it's coming from. That's the number one cause of global warming, is factory farming of animals. So you cannot be a meat-eating environmentalist as much as you might want to be. We have to get away from that.
Tell me, because I'm a little confused, how is it that factory farming affects global warming so much? Is it because we use up the land, because we cut down trees, because we use resources?
It's all of those things, Bill, because when we cut down the trees, then obviously we're removing the very things that absorb nitrous oxide. Carbon dioxide. When we have cattle, we shouldn't worry so much about car emissions, but about emissions from livestock, which are producing methane into the atmosphere. And methane is actually a much bigger problem than CO2 or any of the other gases that are a problem for us in global warming.
So in other words, they cut down the forests to make grazing land for the cattle.
And then of course, it's also a problem for the use of topsoil. It's a problem for the pollution of water, because the offal, the cleaning the manure, everything goes into the waterways, but it's the manure that causes all sorts of problems with the soil, and it's also the emissions from cattle.
Okay.
You know, they're belching and they're doing other things, and that's sending methane up into the atmosphere.
So
and that is the #1 cause of global warming.
It's belching and farting is really the...
Yep. And of course,
Okay,
you know, we have this Rube Goldberg system of making food in this country. You talk about the heartland, and you drive through the heartland, you see these wonderful fields of corn and soy and so on. We're not eating it. We're feeding it all to cattle. So
Right.
in fact, we take 6 to 16 pounds worth of that and put it through a cow or a chicken and get out 1 pound back. And that's not a very efficient system. So that's also
Right.
destructive of the environment.
But let's not forget they're eating that hamburger and that steak in New York City, too.
Yes.
It's not just...
No, they're
So-
growing it in the heartland, and then of course it gets shipped everywhere,
Yes.
which is also energy
Well,
intensive.
all right. So let me ask you about the Michael Vick situation, how that turned out. He made his big apology on Monday. Were you satisfied with how it was resolved?
I think we'll see later on what he's going to do and what the judge is going to do. I was very pleased. We had been asking all along for 2 things. Because, you know, I mean, it is what it is. You can't redo the past. But it's ripped the lid off dogfighting in the United States, which is a problem we've known has been there forever, but just hasn't been in the news very much. So we need to seize this opportunity. He's in a very strong position, like it or not. We wanted him to be the one to say, look, I realize now dogfighting is a terrible thing. I can say that to a dog fighter all day long, but they don't care what I say. If Michael Vick says it, they may care. He did say that. He also said the other thing we had asked for, which is to say to children, don't follow my lead. I was a role model to you, don't follow in my footsteps. So those 2 things I think were very important, but he needs to go far beyond that and say many more things and do many more things. We can't let this just go underground again, and that's what will happen.
Well, he said he found Jesus. This
Yes, well,
caused him to find that rascally Jesus is always hiding until someone fucks up. It's just amazing why, you know, Jesus, you know, I hadn't heard about him.
Well, this is good, though, because if he asks, as you say, you know, if he asks what would Jesus do, I don't think Jesus would be electrocuting dogs
No,
and, you know,
he
inviting
probably
friends over.
All right. I thank you for all you do, Ingrid, and I thank you for coming on our show tonight, and we'll see you soon. Ingrid Newkirk, everybody.
Thank you,
And Mike, yes?
But let me underscore something on Ingrid. She's talking about methane. What we don't realize is right now that the permafrost in the Arctic is melting, and that will, by 100-fold, be more damaging to the planet than everything that human beings are doing. And that is now in motion. Our planet, we on this planet will not survive 100 years. We'll be cooked out of it. And the problem has to be dealt with as an emergency. We can get off of oil in 5 years. We can get off of carbon in 10 years. All we need is a little bit of leadership. Just a little.
You know what I don't understand? I mean, with all due respect, you're 77. What do you
That's
care
right.
for around in 100 years? But I just don't understand any...
I care.
I just don't understand any parent of a 5-year-old kid who is not an ardent environmentalist. I don't understand that. Why? Because it's their kid who in 20 years is going to be choking and, you know, etiquette.
Well, you know, the thing of it is, we need policy change. You know, we can all drive hybrids, we can all not eat meat, but without serious change, then, because, you know, Farm Aid has been dealing with factory farms since the beginning,
Right.
which is what it was all about. Keeping the small family farmer on the land and not allowing these big factory farms to come and pollute our bodies and our land. And that's the story that we started out with in 1985. And we're still trying to tell that story.
But people do not make the connections. They do not connect the dots between what they, and this gets back to my point about why naive is not good. They don't connect these dots between what they're doing. Oil. I mean,
It's a very complicated
you know, we
issue,
have
though.
two giant problems: terrorism from the Middle East and the environment. Both problems could be helped enormously if we would get off the oil tip, but we won't. And you know, before we run out of time, I do want to ask you about this movie that I've watched called No End in Sight. It's a really amazing documentary, and I've seen quite a few on Iraq. And you know, the question a lot of us have been asking since, I don't know, it seems like forever now this war has been going on, is if after we kicked over Saddam Hussein's regime, that 3-week war, if we had done everything right, could it have worked in Iraq? Could we have a stable Iraq that was a different Iraq and was a beacon of light in the Middle East? And to me, that jury was already out. After I saw this movie, I thought, yeah, we actually could. There was a window of opportunity there in 2003. And when you look at the just litany of disastrous decisions that these people made, disbanding the army and not securing the weapons depots and not having them speak Arabic over there, hiring 22 and 23-year-old kids to run major departments. It looks to me, and I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but when you hire a 22-year-old kid to run the stock market in Baghdad and run the traffic in a city bigger than Los Angeles, it looks to me like they were trying to egg on the insurgency. I don't know how else you could read it.
I honestly don't think that they were trying to egg on the insurgency. But I do think that they were so blinded by their ideology, so convinced of their right, their ability and their right to transform a society. They basically approached Iraq as if it was a blank slate. And there were some in the Reconstruction, the political side of the Reconstruction, who actually said that they thought that the looting of the entire infrastructure was good because it was a way of downsizing the government.
I heard that.
And, well, it did.
Right. It seems like they were trying to...
It did. I mean, it zeroed everything out, brought it down to, you know, that sort of basic Stone Age level of no electricity, no water, no sanitation, no law and order, sort of a, you know, a Lord of the Flies almost kind of a thing. But the problem was that it wasn't that they wanted the chaos. I think even the worst of them did not want the chaos. They didn't understand the kind of forces that they were unleashing. And they had this arrogant idea that the Iraqis would be passive to all of this, that we could go in with our ideas and our plans and our way of doing things, and that the Iraqis would just simply sit there and wait for us to come forward with our plans. And it was going to be this petri dish of every single one of their political philosophy ideas, you know, flat taxes, complete privatization. And,
right, they tried things in Iraq that didn't work.
They didn't work
here.
Anywhere.
We didn't get a flat tax.
No,
in America.
And they didn't. But part of what and this is part of the thing, one of the reasons that you had the 22-year-olds, why they fired all the people who had any experience in Iraq, any experience in Reconstruction, any experience in running a stock market, is that they were going in with this transformational idea. Well, anybody who had any experience would know that you can't do that and that it's incremental.
But
so
come
you
on.
had to bring in...
How can anyone be that stupid?
They're not...
Just common sense.
That's our whole foreign policy. You're talking about American imperialism here. And we had no right to even go there. It's their country, not ours.
But even Miss Inbred South Carolina knows that you cannot have a 22-year-old in charge of a stock market or running the traffic in Baghdad.
You got a mental midget as president. Little wonder you have a 22-year-old running the traffic.
But it would only be by bringing in these 22-year-olds who would have no basis of comparison, no experience whatsoever, who would even try to do something like that, where the people who knew what they were doing, we were spending all of our time saying, you can't really privatize this thing up front. You can't really do a flat tax. You know, these factories are gone. You shouldn't be doing
the healthcare system.
Oh, the guy who went in, the first person who came in to run the public health system, and it was a disaster. It was one of the most corrupt ministries. Was probably one of the preeminent experts on public health, post-conflict reconstruction, all of this.
They got rid of him.
They got rid of him first. He was the first one of the experts to leave.
Right.
The guy they brought in had...
And they had free health care over there.
They did.
Right. And when the Bush people put in there, he was aghast at that because, you know, we don't have that here and our system works so good.
Well, the health system in Iraq was a disaster, but there were ways of fixing it. The guy who came in wasn't a doctor, had never done public health, and the very first thing that he decides that has to be done on public health in Iraq is a no-smoking campaign. This is the major threat to the Iraqis, is cigarettes. Not guns, not bombs, not anything else, but cigarettes.
Get that, John?
Yeah, I gave you an ashtray just because I knew you'd want one.
Well, I don't want to offend anybody.
Offend anybody?
Let me tell you something. I was sitting in an alley in Los Angeles, smoking a cigarette, and a woman walks up and she goes, "Your smoke is waffling into my store. Could you?" And I thought, you live in this filth and you're worried about my cigarette?
Well, I'm not. You can have a cigarette if you want.
It's okay.
Really, keep in mind, what we're all talking about is how to do a mistake competently. That's really what this is. We made a mistake going in, and so we're now trying to figure out how you can do this competently. You can. It's a mistake. You walk away. We can, if we withdraw our troops and we can get them out in 120 days, we can bring about peace there. All we got to do is go to Iran, go to Syria, go to Saudi Arabia and say, we screwed up. Help us restabilize your region of the world. And they would do it. They would help us.
Let me hear what he has to. He's been trying to tell me something for...
I don't know if I really buy that, you know, both of the Bush father and Cheney all knew what was going to happen years before.
Right.
What changed? All of a sudden, we're going to... I don't think they gave a shit about
that's what I'm saying. We showed the tape last week of Dick Cheney from 1994. Now, the Dick Cheney of 1994 knew what was going to happen.
Right.
How come the Dick Cheney of 2003 didn't know? 9 years later, he completely forgot everything he knew?
Yeah.
That's why I'm saying it's suspicious to me.
And the old man Bush knew it too. So now all of a sudden, what changed?
Well, first of all, don't forget that this President Bush, when asked if he had talked to his father...
Listen, I don't believe anything those guys say anyway, so I don't care what
he said that he had
You
talked
cynic,
to a
John. You're a cynic.
Hey, listen, I'm one of the guys.
And I have pictures of you in your wife's thong.
What? How'd you get those?
Graydon Carter told me that.
Graydon, oh, God.
Now, let me ask you one last question about the Democrats. To me, they're only helping the Republican cause when they say things like the surge is working or the Maliki government is the problem. It seems like they're helping the Republicans make the excuse. Because you know what the Republicans are going to do? They're going to blame it on the Democrats. That's their big plan, is to just wait this out and then say, you know what? We almost had it working. We had the surge, and then the Democrats pulled the plug on us. We were just months away from this thing working out. Thanks, Democrats.
That's exactly what they did with respect to Vietnam.
Right.
Oh, if we'd have had more time, we could have won. There's nothing to win.
Yeah,
There's nothing to win in Iraq. They're dying in vain. They died in vain in Vietnam, and they're dying in vain now. And there's no reason. You talk about the Democrats. I don't want to criticize the people that are running with me on the
dais. Sure you do.
Well, but I do want to point out that 4 of them are in the Senate, and they could go to Reid and Pelosi and say, hey, Gravel had a strategy that we can have them out by Labor Day and everybody home by Christmas. Doing anything about it? Of course not. I've said, and I'll say it again, that anybody who voted for war is not fit to be president of the United States. And now I include Obama because he doesn't show the leadership to help get us out now.
Okay. have run out of time, but you were a terrific panel. I thank you for joining us. But it is time now for our new rules, everybody. New rules. Okay, new rule. While we're still fighting the war on terror, airport police must spend less time on gay sex and more time on bombs. I know how important it is to keep the streets safe for heterosexuality, but there are a limited number of things to do during a layover in St. Paul, and when you cross anonymous gay sex off the list, there's nothing. Spit take from Mike Ravel. I love that. And airport security isn't helping. I mean, they have you take off half your clothes, then they pat you down. Now you're horny and you've got 3 hours to kill. New rule, no more produce-scented shampoos. Avocado, cucumber, watermelon. Gee, your hair smells like a migrant worker. Is it too much to ask for a simple standard shampoo, something lead-based from China, that'll get the smell of weed out of my hair? New rule, the Vatican doesn't need its own airline. The Vatican has launched the world's first airline for Catholic pilgrims with 3 holy destinations: Rome, Jerusalem, and wherever the Virgin Mary appears in a Dorito. Which is strange, because I thought devout Catholics already had an airline. A little late, but... New rule, people who have just been voted off a reality show have to stop insisting that you haven't heard the last of me. Yes, I believe we have. In fact, we're sure your 15 minutes are up because we timed you on Flava Flav's clock. New rule, stop making us drink everything out of a nipple. Maybe the reason that Americans behave like children is because we're all still breastfeeding. America, land of the free, home of the adult-sized sippy cup. We need to go back to drinking the way grown-ups do, from a keg. And finally, new rule. Stop saying that we all killed Princess Diana because we bought the trashy tabloids that stalked her. I bought tabloids. She was in tabloids. Oh my God, what have I done? She was too good, and we were too selfish, and she died because of our sins. It's the Jesus story with a blonde chick. You know, I know it's hard to believe it's been 10 years, and who can ever forget where they were when they heard the news about the death of the ex-wife of the possible heir to the figurehead leadership of a second-rate country where she almost never spent time. But which isn't to say she was a bad person or deserved to die. It's sad when anyone dies. That's why they have the slow version of the theme song on Entertainment Tonight. And Diana seemed like a truly big-hearted, sincere, and effective philanthropist. But I didn't kill her. And I'm not bad because I read the tabloids. And I'm going to go right on reading the tabloids for one very important reason. They amuse me. I work hard, and at the end of the day, my brain is tired, and I need to feel superior to someone. So, Nicole Richie, come on down. Britney Spears, please let me read about you this week shitting your pants, or having an abortion in the aisle of a liquor store, or driving your children through a car wash with the windows down. Princess Diana was the original Paris Hilton, only with a normal-sized human head. Well, she has a big head, that Paris. I mean, I do too. We could mate and have giant-headed children. And instead of making a porn tape for men like Paris did, Diana had a royal wedding, a porn tape for women. Yeah, you're right. That was edgy. And I'm sorry, but it was a completely avoidable accident. Why race with the paparazzi? Diana's boyfriend, Dodo, should have just hired a big-ass limousine, gotten in the back with her, rolled up the tinted windows, rolled up a fatty, popped in a wham tape, and chilled till they got where they were going, which was always either a castle, a yacht, a private plane, or a five-star hotel. I think for the pain of being photographed on the way in and out of those places, most people would take that deal. Let's see, I work at Dairy Queen, but I could be a queen. Yes, I would have to consider that. You know, we need the tabloids because people need to think that the beautiful people are really just lucky fucks. And tabloids are like junk food for our soul, except instead of you getting fat, John Travolta does. The tabloids are our national guilty pleasure. They're our American birthright. They're what keep us from having to talk to the other assholes in line at the supermarket. Thank you very much, folks, and I want to thank our terrific panel, Mike Gravel, Barbara Bodine, John Mellencamp, Ingrid Newkirk, and Harry Shearer. Thank you very much, folks.